Another one sticking to time, so making our job easy. Moving on to our last session before lunch, we have Anita Byrne, who's no stranger to AHEAD. Anita's going to talk to us about midwifery education in DkIT.
Thank you. That's me. All of us on me. This is my session. Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Anita. Sorry. Thank you. My name is Anita and I'm Senior Lecturer in DkIT. I teach across the midwifery nursing programs, mostly midwifery programs, both undergraduate and postgraduate programs. And I'm very proactive in the whole area of inclusive learning, teaching, assessment, and importantly, feedback. We have to close that loop when we talk about teaching, learning, assessment, and feedback or feed forward. So I just want to talk to you this morning very briefly about an exemplar that we use in DkIT that is really considered a very inclusive form of teaching, learning, assessment, and feedback. So I'm going to frame this within the Altitude Charter and then really listen to what our students say about it, because there's no point us as educators saying this is great if our students are not feeling that too. So as you well know, the toolkit from our very able colleagues in UCD provides us with a framework of taking stock of what we're doing. Now that framework is very thorough. There are 7 areas and 42 elements that we need to consider across the teaching, learning, assessment and feedback environment. And there's not one teaching and learning approach that will address all of those 42 areas. But there is one that comes kind of close, and that's inquiry-based learning. And in other jurisdictions, that's also known as problem-based learning. So what inquiry-based learning does, it enhances the authenticity, it enhances the relevance, it enhances inclusivity, it works with student strengths, it works with peer and self-assessment, peer teaching and learning, and self-discovery. And we package all that together using real-world, authentic case scenarios. The other thing that inquiry-based learning does really well is to put equal value on product, which is what a person learns, what skill set, what knowledge they come out with after the end of a module, but also how that learning has occurred, the metacognition processes, the understanding of this works for me to help me learn. And that's what inquiry-based learning does really well. It works with student strengths. It's not all teaching from a PowerPoint slide. It really fosters teaching and learning in peer groups. So how does it work? It really means that we put our groups into groups of maybe 5 or 6. We give them a real life case scenario. We get them to identify what they know about these particular issues, what they don't know, and then to make a plan for how they're going to find out that information. So just to give you a very, very brief exemplar of what that means. So you have to imagine a classroom full of, in this case, student midwives. This module is a psychosocial module, so it's looking at the wider impacts of being pregnant, becoming pregnant. And these groups are working together, and I give them a variation of a case study each. So this is one example of a case study that I would give a student group. Each case study is slightly different. And this case study involves Alex and David, who are considering starting a family. Alex is autistic and non-binary, and they're worried about how their body is going to change during pregnancy, a reasonable consideration. Alex and David are unsure about where they start if they want to have a baby, and they have highly stressful jobs, and David seeks alternatives to try and manage his stress in terms of vaping. So this is a real-world case scenario that our student midwives may very well come across. So what they need to do now in small groups is to identify what are Alex and David's main issues here. What do we know about these main issues? Like what might we know about autism and pregnancy? What might we know about not being non-binary and trying to become pregnant? What might we know about being non-binary and what that means for bodily changes during pregnancy? And this is all relatively new topics for our student midwifery groups. So they go off then and research these areas and come back and speak to each other in small groups and learn from each other. My role in this is as a facilitator to make sure that they stay within certain guardrails called module learning outcomes. But I don't come in and teach, I come in and facilitate learning. But the really important piece of this is how they then demonstrate their learning. So inquiry-based learning is a perfect example of multiple means of expression, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of action and expression. Sorry, multiple means of engagement at the start. So students now have to figure out what's the best way to demonstrate my knowledge here. And generally this is done in a role play. The students themselves decide to do this in a role play. So the student group who got this particular assessment case study would identify themselves. One would be a midwife and two would be Alex and David, and they then have to have that conversation with Alex and David. So it's really, really authentic and gives real world application. So the assessment part of inquiry-based learning mirrors assessment of, for and as learning. We assess the product, which is assessment of learning. We assess the process, which is assessment as learning. And then we offer feedback, contemporaneous feedback across the module, which is assessment for learning. I'm more than happy to discuss that in much more detail. I don't have the time to do that this morning. But we think it's great, and we have evidence to support that. But what do our students think? And this is one of our students. I hope this will work. Erica, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Just one more. Oh.
Hi, my name is Marion. I'm a higher diploma student in midwifery at Dundalk Institute of Technology. I have been exposed to inquiry-based learning, or EBL, through my psychosocial module in semester 1. I have found it very beneficial. I think it promotes critical thinking and a deeper understanding by seeking out the information myself. And I think by doing this, the information has stayed with me longer, as opposed to sitting in a classroom in front of a PowerPoint presentation. Equally, as we are midwifery students, we are out on the wards, and sometimes our preceptors may not have the time to explain situations or illnesses to us. So I think that background in inquiry-based learning promotes us to seek out the information in our practical clinical placements, which enhances our placements further. So overall, I've had a positive experience with EBL, and I think you get out of it what you put in.
That's Marion, a very pragmatic approach, I think you'll agree. But we have done multiple module evaluations using EBL. We've been facilitating EBL for the best part of 15 years now in DkIT. So we have multiple module iterations and 2 doctoral studies looking at it as well. And these are other student testimonies, and sometimes I'll just pick out 1 or 2 of them. So someone who said, I really, really, really enjoyed this module. It's always a pleasure being in the classroom. The module was one of my favorites. Like, the students do really enjoy it. It's not to say it's a panacea in any shape or form. It brings challenges. Again, multiple research studies on that as well, which I'm happy to speak about again. But just to bring it back then into the frame of the Altitude Charter, bringing it back into the toolkit in terms of that teaching assessment pillar. Inquiry-based learning does represent a really good approach that garners student enthusiasm. It provides multiple means of engagement, action, expression, and representation. It's flexible, authentic assessment with baked-in feedback, contemporaneous feedback. It involves student partnership, enhances student belonging, and removes unnecessary barriers because it really works with students' strengths. Some students might be really great at the research, some might be really great at the demonstration, but within a group, those strengths then are harnessed. So I'm more than happy to take questions if there are any, but there's food on the table, so I appreciate there may not be. Thank you. Okay. Hello.
Hello everyone, my name's Jennifer Byrne and I'm from Byrne as well, Anita, and I'm from UL, and thank God I have this because we're talking at 1:30 and I hope my voice stays. Can I just say, both Kerry and myself have thoroughly enjoyed the talks today, and a lot has resonated with what we're as university teachers in UL and what we do. So we will be coming and chatting to you, Lisa, and everyone else after this. But in relation, in Anita, to your work in Dundalk. Can I just ask, in relation to your assessment forms, is this formative? Because we deliver a module called Transition to a Competent Practitioner, and we have included simulation and role play as well. But from your point of view, how this lovely golden thread, how does this link with your assessment? And apologies if I've not picked up on that in your
that's
presentation.
fine. We could spend a whole afternoon speaking about the assessment piece here. So we assess product and process. So product is the what have I learned, what skill set, what knowledge have I learned, and then we assess process, which is how has that learning come across. So the product piece, the what do I know now better than I did before, is given a mark by the facilitator of the module. The learning process is given a mark by the students themselves and their peer group. And so what we would normally do is a 70-30 split, 70% to product, 30% to process. And that process then uses a rubric. The students use a rubric. They then have to justify grades above 70% or below 50%, either in a written format or in a voice memo. But we do need justification for marks that they give themselves and marks that they give their peers.
So do you have a formative then approach built into your into the EBL? Do you have a formative approach in there?
So both elements, product and process, are summative in that they go towards the end mark, but we do meet with students on 3 occasions across the module to give them feedback. And that is then
that's the
assessment for learning.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Erica.